Is the Durand Line imaginary or real? The guns may have fallen silent for now, but the Pakistan-Afghanistan border remains one of the most dangerous places in all of South Asia. After a week of fierce fighting, airstrikes, and border closures, both sides agreed to a ceasefire in Doha. But peace still feels fragile. Because what's at stake isn't just territory, it's a line that Pakistan calls its sovereign border, and Afghanistan calls it imaginary. That border is the Durand Line, a 2,300-kilometer frontier drawn more than a century ago, but still contentious today. The Durand Line dates back to 1893. The British Empire worried about Russian expansion, so they sent diplomat Sir Mortimer Durand to negotiate with Afghanistan's ruler Amir Abdurrahman Khan. They drew a line. It separated British India's territory from Afghanistan's sphere of influence. At the time, it was about controlling tribes and territory, not building nations. Now, legally speaking, this wasn't just one agreement. In 1893, the original treaty was signed, and then in 1905, after the Amir died, Afghanistan signed another agreement. It upheld the existing border arrangements. Then in 1919, a detailed contract was signed between Britain and Afghan government. This established the modern-day border. It's important to understand that these weren't agreements with British India, they were agreements with Britain itself. Each time Afghanistan's political status changed, they signed fresh documents. Same clauses, same border, just new signatures. So when Pakistan was born in 1947, it simply inherited that border. From Islamabad's perspective, the matter was settled. International law backs this up. The Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties says Pakistan must uphold all treaties that the British Indian government had made, and that includes the Durand Line Agreement. There's also the principle of ut possidetis juris. It's Latin for as you possess. It means new states keep colonial boundaries unless both sides agree otherwise. This principle is accepted worldwide. Article 11 of the Vienna Convention on Succession of States is clear. A succession of states doesn't affect a boundary established by a treaty. So, Pakistan has no obligation to renegotiate its border with Afghanistan. The 1988 Geneva Accords recognized the Durand Line as an international border. So have multiple UN Security Council resolutions, including Resolution 1267. The principle of non-intervention applies here. But Kabul never agreed. On July 26, 1949, Afghanistan unilaterally declared the Durand Line imaginary. They said all agreements were void. Their arguments? That the treaty was signed under duress. It was only valid for 100 years until 1993. And independence from colonial rule voided all agreements. But this isn't in line with any of the international agreements. Every Afghan government since then has refused formal recognition. Monarchs, communists, and now even the Taliban. After the ceasefire was signed, Afghanistan's defense minister, Mullah Yaqub, appeared at a press conference. He declared that the border is imaginary and hypothetical. He said the ceasefire talks didn't even discuss it. That single statement reignited anger in Islamabad. The current Taliban administration has raised the issue more aggressively than any other government before. Their tone marks a new level of defiance, one that's provoking Pakistan at a time of deep mistrust. It's an ironic twist. For years, the Taliban were seen as Pakistan's allies during the US occupation. Many of their leaders even operated from inside Pakistan. But the relationship was always one of convenience. Even the first Taliban regime in the 1990s refused to recognize the Durand Line. But it wasn't a major issue back then. Now, they're far more vocal and confrontational. They're positioning themselves as defenders of Afghan nationalism, not Pakistan's partners. So why now? Analysts say that this has more to do with domestic politics. The Taliban face enormous pressure at home, a crumbling economy, sanctions, food shortages, international isolation over women's rights. So by challenging the Durand Line, they're tapping into Afghan pride. They're rallying support among Pashtuns who live on both sides. But here's what they ignore. Afghanistan's own actions contradict their rhetoric. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Afghanistan never questioned its border with the newly independent Central Asian states. Those were colonial borders too, but Kabul stayed silent. Afghanistan also never formally launched any initiative to renegotiate the current agreement. They've continued to abide by the Durand Line's clauses. They operate immigration and custom checkpoints along what they call a disputed border. So if it's imaginary, then why run border checkpoints? Afghanistan has never raised the Durand Line at any international forum with Pakistan either. Their actions prove that they recognize it as the valid border between the two states. This is raised only when it's politically convenient and when it's needed as a distraction. From Pakistan's point of view, the border is settled and also internationally recognized. But lately, law has mattered less than security. Since the Taliban's return to power in 2021, Pakistan has seen a surge in militant attacks, especially by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Islamabad says they operate freely from Afghan soil. So Pakistan decided to fence the border against cross-border terrorism. Under UN Security Council Resolution 1373, Pakistan has every right to do this. It can deny safe haven to those who finance, plan, support, or commit terrorist acts. The US did the same with the Secure Fence Act of 2006. Pakistan can lawfully fence the Durand Line on its side without Afghanistan's consent. For people living along the Durand Line, these political games aren't abstract. They're life and death. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, and across the border in Nangarhar and Kandahar, millions depend on trade routes like Torkham and Chaman. When fighting erupts or the border shuts, food prices spike, businesses collapse, and families are split apart. The so-called imaginary line may be disputed, but its consequences are painfully real. What makes this even more volatile is the resurgence of militant networks. Groups like the TTP and Islamic State Khorasan are reorganizing along the frontier. The ceasefire may hold for now, but as long as Afghanistan refuses to accept legal reality, the border will remain a flashpoint.